1. I don't know what to think about this at all. Over the past couple of weeks, tips have been going missing from regulars. And once I noticed someone leaving cash on the table for another waitress, and then it being gone when someone else cleans it. I want to preface that for some reason we don't have buzzers except if we're slammed, and servers clean their own tables 90% of the time. I'll explain 3 situations when I was working, although the other servers have other moments. As of late, the manager has been asking to borrow money and get rides from servers and cooks. Recently, a server's regular, who always leaves $20 for her, had told me he left her tip as normal, but when she came back from break and went to clean his table, it was already taken care of and the money gone. At first, she thought he either forgot or someone accidentally grabbed it when cleaning up. She asked the other waitress and I if we cleaned it. Our manager had been cleaning some tables at the time but didn't think anything of it. The waitress asked the manager to watch the cameras, as this had been happening lately, to see who cleaned the table, and the manager claimed that the cameras blacked out during that time. Never happened before, but maybe. A couple of days later, I was serving my regulars, who gave me a big tip last time they visited, and my manager sent me on break immediately after I gave them their check. They gave their change, $3, to the host to give to me, and said they left the rest on the table. The host tells me when I get back from break, and my table was cleared and no money. Host tells me manager was helping clean. I asked the manager about it, and she said she didn't see anything. The other waitress mentioned it was similar to her situation. Left it at that. Then today, similar thing happened. A third waitress had it happen, and I told her to go ask the manager, as she had cleaned tables again during that time. I didn't say it snarky, as I didn't want to discuss about something I have no proof over. Apparently, the other waitress, with tips coming up missing, had passively told the assistant manager, "I don't think I want to work here when I have to worry about the general manager pocketing our tips." And the assistant manager told the manager, and they assumed it was me spreading gossip. I suspect that the other server said I started the rumor, but I hadn't. Basically, I was told I didn't need to finish my shift last week, as they scheduled more than enough people, so I can go back to college. They added that I can come in if I want, but it's not necessary. They didn't overschedule from what I saw when I looked before any of this happened. But definitely got the message I'm not welcome back. I definitely made a mistake talking about it at all, but at this place, stealing food and money was a big problem that occurred on a nearly daily basis. Thus, I tried to figure out if I needed to be worried. Other servers now scared shitless they're next. On top of that, we used to get all our money in cash at the end of every night, and corporate and management decided that larger tips will be on our paychecks instead. I'm sorry if this is petty, but the other night 2 servers physically fought in the front parking lot and both kept their jobs and worked the same shift again today. It doesn't sit right with me that that's excusable. Of course, I'm not defending myself, as I should have just minded my own business. Although this was likely my last time working here, and I only had a week left, I wish it ended on better terms. 2. Just going to unload a lot of frustration, so sorry in advance. I work at a steakhouse named after a state in the US. I worked at this restaurant for 3 years in total, although I left for a while because the environment was toxic and I needed to take a break for my mental health. When I moved out of my mom's house for the first time, I went back because the money was better than the grocery store job I had been working. I was actually really excited to go back. A lot of the problems I had been having, problems with management playing favorites, looked like they would be gone because there was pretty much a complete overhaul in management. At the time I returned, only 2 managers were the same, including the GM. I was not the best at the job, the first time I worked there, because it was my first serving job, and this was a popular, never not busy restaurant in my city. Now, I have a better grasp of the job duties, and I manage my tasks more efficiently. I pretty much carry site work by myself at this point. I can think of maybe 3 other people who can readily be counted on to handle tasks not specifically related to tables. I had my breaking point today, or yesterday I guess, when everything was just falling apart for me. I was the only one doing anything that needed to be done in the kitchen. I would walk into the kitchen to make drinks for one table, and have to grab all the components needed to get those drinks. I got the glasses and the ice and sweetened the tea and did everything necessary. Then, when I went back to get drinks for the next table, I had to get all that stuff again because people used the stuff I got, which is totally fine, I get it. And then, when we ran out of whatever, they would just go to the other side of the kitchen and get it from there instead of replacing what they took. It takes 2 minutes to grab ice, less than that for glasses. It's literally not an issue just to do what needs to be done, and literally every time I walked into the kitchen I was doing it, to the point that my kitchen manager would point out when he saw me going for ice the 4th time in the 30-ish minute period. In the last 15 minutes before we closed, I got sat with 2 large parties. Separate enough that I wasn't double sat, but basically back to back, as had been the trend for the entire night. Both times I needed drinks, I had to gather all of the components, and I pointed this out to the tables when I was apologizing for taking so long in delivering drinks. I got both orders rang in just before we closed and kept going. One of the tables had salads and the others didn't. I built a routine of dropping by each table with drink refills, always having to grab ice and cups to make them, of course, and running food in the meantime. My restaurant has a policy of running hot food before cold, so generally we run entrees before stuff like salads. Therefore, I'm at Expo running tray after tray of food. The only person running any food, and I don't remember my salads for my one table. Literally, they pointed it out like 20 minutes later when I dropped off their entrees. The guy was super chill. He was like, "I just really like your Caesar salads here." And I apologized profusely and said I would try to get fresh salads made. The problem was that by now we had been closed for roughly 15 minutes, so when I went to ask the girl making the salads if she could make them again because they sat so long, she had already finished cleaning her station. I had resigned myself to bringing out the salads that were almost 30 minutes sat there. But Anne was willing to make them again. She used a to-go box to toss the salad instead of dirtying her station again, and she got me the salads I needed fresh for my table. I was so incredibly appreciative of her willing to go to that length for me. Neither of those tables tipped me amazingly. I made about $25 off the 2 in total, and these were both large parties. But I was appreciative anyway, because I felt like the quality of my service was lacking, because I was basically keeping the restaurant running all by myself, at least the front of house. I am ultimately just frustrated because this is always how things are, and if literally any one person had helped with anything, it wouldn't have been anywhere near as bad of a shift for me. I unloaded everything on my kitchen manager, and I felt kind of bad about it, because I was yelling at him, but I didn't mean to because I wasn't mad at him, because he literally wasn't the problem. But he was very understanding. His only solution was bringing it up at the manager meetings that we need to work on late-night focus, but I don't think that will help. I honestly think that there should be some system in place that recognizes the amount of work that people put in and responds accordingly. Something like better sections or cuts based on performance throughout the shift, regarding things like side work and food running, but I know that will never happen. 3. This story is already a couple of years old, but I thought you might appreciate it. Back in college, I, 24 and female, worked for a small family-owned restaurant. It's been around for a long time, so the place had this 1950s diner look with a similar menu. Think Coke floats, homemade cherry Cokes, homemade milkshakes, burgers and fries, etc. It's a town staple, and people from all over the US come to try their famous burgers and shakes. That being said, weekends are busy. For some unknown reason, they kept a staff of a total of only 6 or 7 people. This was a deliberate choice. I saw people come and go, but never saw the staff grow. That means the same 7 people showed up every day. So if 2 or more people called in sick on the same day, the rest of us were basically fucked. If this happened, best case scenario, we closed for the day. Worst case, we had to limit our menu for the day, leaving us to deal with angry customers. Or just stay open late if a school bus decided to pull up 10 minutes before closing. Now to the reason I quit. Back then I had just started to date my current boyfriend, and we only saw each other every couple of weeks, so we always tried to make it count. This particular time we both got really drunk one night and got a little too carried away. I wake up in the morning to find a huge hickey on the side of my neck. I freaked out a little bit, but it was nothing that I couldn't fix with a ton of concealer and foundation. I went on about my day, went to school, and after school I went to work. As soon as I get to work, my supervisor, an older middle-aged lady, sees me and immediately yells, "What is that on your neck, young lady?" Which makes a couple of other co-workers, also middle-aged ladies, turn their attention to me. They suddenly start laughing and making very loud jokes with each other, saying I was easy, making fun of how I tried to cover it up, and saying they were going to tell my dad that I was being a whore while he thinks I'm studying. If these were my friends, I would have probably laughed with them and told them to fuck off, but these were merely my co-workers, people I've never talked to this way. Keep in mind what I said before, this place is small, so now all the customers, some of them regulars in the room, knew that the waitress helping them tonight was an easy whore with a hickey on her neck. I had never felt so humiliated in my life. I tried to push through the shift, but I didn't want to burst out crying, so I told my coworker in the back that I'd do dishes while he waited tables. So there I was on the back, hiding and feeling miserable. I ended my shift and cried my eyes out to my then boyfriend, and contemplated the idea of quitting, but never really decided on it. The next day, a Friday, right before my shift, my boyfriend asks, "What are you going to do?" And I still didn't know, so I said I'll let him know in a few hours. As soon as I clocked in, the decision was clear. I was still very hurt, angry, and I didn't feel like seeing these people every day, especially because up until that point, I've never been anything but respectful to them, and I didn't feel like working during a busy weekend anyway. So I went to the same lady that started the jokes and told her, "I'm finishing today's shift, but after today I'm quitting effective immediately." She got upset and started going off about how there's already 2 people that called in and they needed a 2 weeks notice because there was no replacement for me. I just shrugged and said something along the lines of not really my problem anymore. I felt super satisfied after getting home that day. I have no idea how that weekend shift went, but I never cared too much anyway. One interesting detail that I almost forgot about is that one of the reasons that ultimately motivated me to quit is that the co-worker I exchanged dish duty with is a man that happened to show up with hickeys made by his girlfriend and other girls he messed with on the regular. As you can guess, nobody ever said a word to him, but God forbid that I, a girl, had a sex life. Four. I started working at this mom-and-pop pizza place around my area. Last time I'll ever work for a family-owned business. It started off okay with the main owner, but once I started working with the wife, I should have known things would have been bad. First day working with her, we already started off on an awkward note when she called my music a racist slur, and randomly looked at me one day and said out loud, "I wish I could get a house for all the illegal immigrants." I'm Hispanic, so I felt kinda awkward about how random that comment was. She also said to me one day, "I can be a mother to you." At that point in time, my mother was in the hospital, so talking about mothers was a very touchy subject for me, so I politely said, "Hey, I know you're kidding, but please can we not talk about that?" She replied with, "No, seriously, I treat everyone like my kids here." And I said again, "Please, now is not really a great time." And I think me rejecting that hurt her in some way. I've heard before she has a reputation for being mean, but I tried to ignore it. We were on okay terms until one night she kept nitpicking everything I did. I helped dishwash one night and the drain was clogged. The drain has been having issues for a while, so some water got stuck halfway. She yelled at me for it and I said politely, "I'm sorry, I did not know that would happen, I'm fixing it now." She kept going on and saying, "Sorry doesn't fucking cut it." And I just said, okay, which annoyed her even more. She came up to me and said to no longer use soap or water to wash dishes. I was confused and just ignored it. Next day I worked with her and had to dishwash again. I tried using less water this time. Quickly rinse off a dish, then turn off the water, rinse and repeat. She saw that and said, "Didn't I tell you not to use water?" I got upset and said, "How else do I wash dishes?" She got upset and said, "Why aren't you listening to me? I'm your boss. Not everything is a protest." I kept my head down after that. Same night, while making orders, my co-worker had grilled chicken set aside for me on a plate, 'cause I was getting chicken wraps ready to go, and was backed up, so I told him to set it on a paper plate for a second, so it doesn't overburn, and he can put more things on the grill as needed. She yelled at me again due to me wasting paper, and how she isn't made of money. Throughout the night, she kept getting angry about things like that, so I left an hour early and texted the owner and said, "Hey, I'm sorry. I left early, but your wife keeps attacking me." He then called me and asked me to explain more, so I told him everything, and he laughed and said, "That's how she is. I've been married to her for 30 years. She's upset because we're on a money crunch right now due to how many people we've hired for the amount of money." I didn't think that was right, but figured as long as he knows, I'll be fine. I was trying really hard not to be the type who quits after being yelled at, 'cause I wanted to last long at a job. A few weeks passed and things were fine. I figured we were over it, but just the other day it got worse. I was wrapping subs while she was on grill, and someone who was on cold subs went on break. We were getting backed up, so I figured I'd wrap and do cold. She instantly said, "Stay where I put you or else you will fuck it up." Keep in mind, I've been in the food industry for 2 years now. I brushed it off, and later on I had to prep some food that I've never prepped before, so I asked her a few small things on it. Whenever I'd ask, she'd roll her eyes because I ruined her conversation. I figured not to take it personal and went on with my day. I went off to prepare chicken and had blood on the counter. I went to go grab a rag to clean, and she went past me saying, "You need to know how to clean after yourself." I said, "Oh, sorry, I was actually just grabbing a rag." She then gets upset, throws her arms in the air and says, "Oh no, it's okay. You never have to do anything. Do what you want." So I said, "Oh God, we're back to this now." She kept going on and said, "You need to know what you're fucking doing." And I said, "I know you're upset, but please don't swear at me. I'm not talking to you like that." "Oh, but anyone else can talk to you in that way and it's fine." I was confused and said, "No one else talks to me the way you do." She scoffs and walks away, and I go on my break to cool down. I come back, and she's going up to everyone going, "Oh, did my swearing hurt your feelings? Are you going to cry? We need to watch our tone here, I guess." I feel like I'm being taunted, but I go to finish some pizza sauce we have to make. I forgot the amount of seasoning that goes in it, so I asked her nicely, and she says, "Just go home, I'll do it." So I leave, grab my coat, and she says, "You aren't cut out for this, buddy." I try to ignore it, and she repeatedly says, "You aren't cut out for this, buddy." I got angry and said, "No wonder your son does not talk to you," and left at my normal clock-out time. I said it because I was trying to find a way to get her to stop messing with me, but her son also used to work there, and she would do the same to him, but he would take it to a worse extreme and throw and smash things. Walked away and cut her off. I was scheduled to have 2 days off after that, so I go back in today and no one says a word to me. I go to hang up my coat and the owner is in there. He looks upset and says, "I thought you quit." So I said, "No, is it because of what happened?" And he gets silent. I explain myself more, explaining how I feel like she goes harder on me than anyone else for no reason. He listens while nodding his head and says, "Well, she's not just targeting you, she was doing it to everyone." He then asks me when is my next day, and when I looked at the schedule, my name is violently crossed off with a Sharpie. He offers for me to work around her schedule, but I'm not sure if I even want to be here anymore. I really tried to be nice, but I hate the feeling of being backed into a corner, especially if I'm apologizing. Was it even worth it to stand up for myself, or should I have just kept my head down? I also hate the feeling and look of me tough-talking an old lady. I have another job lined up this Monday, but I'm so sick of working in kitchens, especially family-owned. 5. So this is a tricky one, and has been weighing on me for a while now. For background, I worked as a hostess and tended bar at some pretty high-end clubs, and got into the scene of partying and regular drug use. Do not recommend. Thankfully, I was able to pull my head above water and realize I was going down the wrong path, and took actions to straighten out. I still have fun, but on a way less level and frequency. I feel so much better, healthier, and happier, and for real. My old friends are now messes at best, and a few dead from not having the same realization I did. And these are people in late 20s and early 30s. It breaks my heart to see. So, to my question, there is a manager at one of my places of work now, a bar and club, that is a top-notch human and someone I consider a friend. He is funny and nice and kind, and everyone loves him. Always the life of the party and cares more about others having fun than himself. He has a wife and 3 kids. Here's the question. I have noticed that he is constantly using drugs. He has some device with cocaine constantly ready. Always has vape pens with weed, etc. He goes out pretty much every night after hours. I can tell when he's dialed up and behaving more intense than he should, and then hear stories about how he was out until 5 a.m. I'm worried that he might die using drugs at this clip. I think of his poor family and wonder how this can be okay, and how he can possibly function at home. Then realize that he keeps it together and functions pretty good. The thing is, he keeps it together very much so everyone, including me, still loves him. I just can't shake the fact that, after seeing him take cocaine bumps all day while drinking and doing other things, and then going out until 4 a.m., that something is wrong. I would pass out if I did 1/10 of what I saw him do. But I recover and treat it like a rare event, and he takes it like a necessary. I'm worried about his health and family. He has 3 kids and a cool wife, and I just want to smack him for not being with them more. Fellow servers, do I say something? Order and intervention? At work, most girls are inclined to let him carry on unless it gets worse. I'm worried we will find him in a bad place soon. Nobody except me would say anything to him. I just want to tell him that I am worried and see patterns similar to friends that died. However, he is our great manager, and don't want to judge or offend. I'm probably overthinking this, but thoughts? Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, episode 220. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do boop the like button. If you'd like to get the videos a little bit early, you can support me and the channel through Patreon on a monthly basis for as little or as much as you like. You can find the link to that in the description, along with a link to the Hellfreezer merchandise store. You can also make donations during streams and videos like this one on a one-off basis if you wish to do so. While I do not require this, I do appreciate it. Alright, I think I've got a little shout-out to give, actually. This was to the author of one of last week's stories. Angry Chef Nate on Reddit. They wrote a book. I'll include a link to the Kindle purchase on Amazon. Angry Chef, Tales of Petty Revenge Served Hot. For the record, this is not sponsored. I'm just doing this as a courtesy. Alright, and with that, I'm moving right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: do you prefer efficiency over familiarity? If you're presented with a new way of doing something that replaces the old way, and it's better but it's strange and new and scary, would you rather stick with the old familiar version that might not do the job as well? Specifically, the tools I use to generate images, the way of using them no longer works very well. For example, Stable Diffusion have a new version I call Stable Diffusion XL, and I use an interface called Automatic 1111. Has not been updated and optimized to work with SDXL, so it doesn't work very well. Basically brings your system to a screaming halt. Even people with better systems than I have. I'm currently running a 27 8GB VRAM graphics card. Would like to upgrade, but that is not my priority at the moment. And there's a new thing called Comfy UI, which I don't like. I don't like the look of it. I don't like the name. The only thing I do like is that it works a bit better. So that's what I'll be using going forward until Automatic 1111, which is what I prefer, gets updated. If it does. no guarantee it will, because these are not for-profit projects. These are done as a hobby, a labor of love by the people involved. So, let me know what you think. Give me some examples below of similar situations, and I look forward to reading them in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. Lots more recording to do. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.